Hi there. Welcome to Pallet University. Number one, please excuse the messiness of my set a little bit in the background. I'm about to leave, basically as soon as I get done recording this, I'm going to leave for my final week of field work for the summer, doing some field paleontology out here in South Dakota. During field work, life just gets very messy, including my room, so please excuse that. But I was going to just not have a video this week, but then I decided, something interesting happened to me, and I want to make sure that doesn't happen to you, and that I got sort of scammed, as you can probably tell from the title, from buying some older Pokemon games, specifically Fire Red and Leaf Green. If you have seen this video, you'll know that I've been on a real kick lately of trying to find some of the older Pokemon games to add to my collection, including when I successfully found a legitimate working copy of Soul Silver, one of the rarest and most expensive older Pokemon games to find these days. And I got it very cheaply off of Facebook Marketplace. And so I figure that Facebook Marketplace, at least in my mind, I had it that Facebook Marketplace is a more safer way to buy what should be authentic Pokemon games rather than buying them off of eBay. Because eBay has gotten better about making companies on eBay that sell counterfeit games, making sure that they label that they are reproductions or counterfeit. Most of the time they'll use reproduction because they don't want to call their own product a counterfeit, but it is. Either way, they're still rampant on eBay. So I figured Facebook Marketplace is a much safer way because in general it's just people getting rid of old stuff that they don't want anymore. So I feel like you'd have much fewer people willingly or willfully, knowingly selling reproduction or counterfeit games. And so in that sense, the thumbnail and title of this are a little bit of a lie because I do not believe that the person that I bought them from knew. After I figured out that they were fake, and I'll break down how I knew so that you all can know that as well. And there's a million of those videos out there, but the more people know how to spot fake games, the better. Because I think that'll make people produce them less, and they'll just kind of get out of the market. And then also, so that you don't waste your own money on what you thought was an authentic product, but turned out not to be. But anyway, so I bought them from this guy on Facebook Marketplace. Actually, I'll rewind. So this morning, basically right when I got up, I've also been looking for a couple just things for around the house on Facebook Marketplace. So that's usually one of the first things that I do when I get up in the morning. But I saw somebody listed a whole bundle of Pokemon things, including a DS, Pokemon White with a case, Pokemon Soul Silver with a case, and a Pokewalker, which is important, and I'll talk about why later. 2 copies of Leaf Green, a copy of Fire Red, a copy of Emerald, Sapphire, a DS, and then a couple other non-Pokemon games. For $200, which is actually an insane deal. Oh, also Platinum. Platinum was in there as well. If you were to buy all those things separately, just the Soul Silver with the case and the Pokewalker, easily $120. Assuming, especially if the case has all the paperwork on the inside. Pokemon White, in that same sense, with the game, the case, and all the paperwork on the inside, probably about $80 maybe. So those 2 games by themselves are that $200. So if everything in there is authentic, huge steal. So I looked at it, and obviously I didn't want the Soul Silver. I already have it. I have all of it. I have the paperwork, the case, and the Pokewalker, so I didn't want that. I also don't need another DS because I have 2 DS Lites, which can still play Game Boy games, so I didn't really need another one. So I just messaged the person and asked them, would you be willing to piece this out? I'm only interested, I was going to buy, depending on how cheaply, I was going to buy either one of the Leaf Greens or a Fire Red. And then potentially Platinum if it was relatively cheap as well. And he said he would, but he had somebody message him prior about buying the entire thing, and he'd get back to me. He didn't because somebody bought them. So I was like, oh, okay, that's kind of annoying. But then around this afternoon, I saw somebody list a copy of Fire Red and Leaf Green, and in my mind I should have put 2 and 2 together, but I didn't. So I saw somebody list it, and in the description it said 2 copies of Leaf Green and a copy of Fire Red. And it was $30 if you wanted to buy them separately, or $75 for all 3. So I spent $75, because in my mind I'm like, okay, I'll keep a Fire Red and a Leaf Green, I'll sell the other Leaf Green for $30, roughly. So that means I got a copy of Fire Red and Leaf Green for a total of $45, which is very cheap. Again, assuming that they're real. So I get them, and I should have been more thorough. That's number one. If you're buying things, especially in person, know what you're looking for when you go in. And I sort of did, but I didn't pay enough attention until I got in my car and looked at them. And by the time I sort of saw something fishy, the guy was gone. So before I messaged him being like, hey, you sold me counterfeit stuff, I made sure I looked up several sources on my phone to see how to tell if something is counterfeit or not. And one of these is much more convincing than the other two. But it turned out all 3 of them are counterfeit. So I messaged the guy. And not angrily, because, like I said, if you're buying it off YouTube, or off eBay, generally, you can assume those people know what they have. But on Facebook Marketplace, like I said, it's just normal people trying to get rid of stuff they don't want. Or in this case, reselling something that came in a bundle that they didn't want. So I messaged him and was like, hey, do you know where you got these? Because I'm pretty sure all 3 of them are counterfeit. And he sent me a question mark and said, I bought them from another seller on here. And then I thought about that guy from this morning, the bundle guy, and asked him, what was it from a guy selling a whole bundle this morning? And he was like, yeah, it was. So, and the reason why that's important is because the Soul Silver had a Pokewalker. Obviously the box for some of those games as well. But counterfeit Soul Silver and Heart Gold games cannot connect to a Pokewalker. So the fact that there was a Pokewalker there, to me, was sort of a cosign that, okay, everything in this picture is real. And so obviously that did not turn out to be the case. So I just told the guy, I wasn't mad. Obviously he, bought these the same day and turned around and flipped them less than half a day later. So obviously this is not his fault. And, to be honest, I kind of doubt that the guy who sold them to him probably even knew. However, like I said, I'll go through and point out some of the things how I kind of noticed that they were fake and teach you guys. So I'll probably, I probably put a note up at the beginning of the video saying, jump to here if you want to find out how these are fake. But, so I really, that's just kind of a lesson in, be thorough, be a good, smart consumer, unlike me this time. Because it's not like the Soul Silver, where I got that for, I think, $5 or $10. So it's like, if it turned out to be fake, I'm not really out anything. But, $75 is kind of a lot for me right now, financially. So that kind of sucks. And I don't quite know what I'm going to do with these. I'll figure something out. But I definitely don't want them. I don't want them unless they're real. So I'll figure out something to do. If you have ideas for what I should do with these, let me know those down below. Anyway, so I took these pictures of them with my phone. And so here's a picture of all 3. And you can tell right away something is at least up with the 2 leaf greens, because they are very different. They just look different. Obviously, the biggest difference is in the labels. The one on the left looks, from what I remember from having leaf green as a kid, it looks much more convincing, and it also looks much more similar to the Fire Red label than does the one on the right. The sort of warp lines in it, I guess, look more blurred, as opposed to the one on the right that look much more clear and defined. And there's a little bit of a glare on the one on the left, and I apologize for that. But the biggest way that you could tell from the outside is that none of them have the stamped in serial number that is supposed to be right above the official Nintendo seal of quality. that little oval-shaped gold and white thing down in the bottom right sort of corner. That's the number one tell, in that almost no reproductions have them. And I'll put up some pictures of an official copy of Emerald that I have from way back in the day that I know for a fact is legit, so that you can hopefully see those a little better. They're tough to show up on camera, but they're definitely still there. The next most obvious way is really hard to look at with a camera, so I will sort of demonstrate, even though you won't really be able to see. So the best way to do it is actually to take the whole thing apart. However, because Nintendo always uses, at least on these old ones, for Game Boy Advance games anyway, used a little 3-prong screw. It's a little tough to see it there, but it's a 3-prong screw instead of a normal like Phillips head screw. And so I don't have a 3-prong screwdriver, so I can't take it apart to show you. I will find some pictures though and put them in here. But on the PCB, which well most people would call it a motherboard, there will never be a battery visible in a game, in these games anyway, Fire Red and Leaf Green. I don't know that for sure for Sapphire and Emerald. Actually, I mean, look. So interestingly, Ruby, Sapphire, and Emerald do have an internal battery, sort of what you think about with, which makes sense actually now that I think about it. The old Game Boy and Game Boy Color Pokemon games would have a little like watch battery in the inside that kept your save file. The only difference between that and the one in Ruby, Sapphire, and Emerald is that that doesn't keep your save, it keeps the time. When you set the time at the beginning of the game, that battery is what keeps track of that time. So when the battery runs dry, time-based things no longer happen. But in Fire Red and Leaf Green, they don't have that battery. So if you can see a battery at all through the vaguely translucent cartridge casing, that is for sure counterfeit. So if you can crack it open, obviously number one, if there's a battery, it's not real. Number two, if you have it cracked open and if you're looking at where the label would be, there will always be a vertical chip, a black like rectangle connecting to the PCB. The one on the left should be vertical and the one on the right should be horizontal. That's always the case. They made sort of two versions of them, not just Fire Red and Leaf Green, but like the older ones and newer ones, where the layout is the same, but I think on the newer ones, the horizontal chip that's on the right is a little longer. So if it's a different just like size than something you look up online, as long as they're like in the right place, that's fine. Also, another very big thing to pay attention to on the insides is right above the gold pins where it would connect to your Game Boy. It should say Nintendo and a couple other things. Obviously the Nintendo should be the old school Nintendo where it's like in the bubble. I don't think Nintendo still has that anymore. But it's like the trademark or trademarked Nintendo writing in like the sort of rounded oval. The one of them that I have here does not have the oval around it. That's a big tell. And then the two that do have the oval around it, the font is very, very thin, as opposed to the nice, like, thicker Nintendo typical registered trademark print. So that's also a very big tell. However, I think the easiest way to tell is you don't have to put it in, you don't have to crack it open, you don't have to do anything. All you have to do is put it into something that can read it, like so. So I'm going to pop one of these into one of these DS lights that I have. God, I missed that sound. So once you go to start GBA game, so it'll say the nice Game Boy stuff. It'll load up just fine. Yeah, you can see my webcam a little bit there. It'll load up just fine. But when you go to get in, it says, it's tough to read right there, but it says the save file will be loaded. That's not a thing. That's not a thing from any real Pokemon game. So that's before you even get to your save file. It will say the save file will be loaded or something to that effect. That is a surefire way and a very quick way to tell. So if you're buying any of these things, especially in person, bring whatever system you're going to play it on with you, because that takes you less than 30 seconds to tell pretty convincingly if that's a legit copy or not, because all three of these said that. So learn from my mistakes, don't get scammed. Like I said, if anybody has any ideas on what I could do with these, because I really don't want them, let me know down below. I really don't want to resell them either, because, like, I'm sure even if I make it very clear that these are not legitimate copies, somebody could still, you know, I like to trust people, but also in general, sometimes people are not all that observant. So even if I make it super clear that these are even say in big, bold font, this is a reproduction / counterfeit, somebody could still buy it and be like, hey, I thought this was real. You ripped me off. So, I don't know. I really don't know what to do with these. So let me know that down below. Hopefully this was helpful to you. And maybe you can learn a little bit from my misery and my loss of $75. But like I said, so also next week there may or may not be a video, because next week is the first week of classes for me for this semester, which obviously is always a pretty busy time, so I don't know whether I'll have time to get a video up next week. So if I don't worry about it, there'll be one the following week, and if there is, enjoy it. So as always, make sure to follow me on Twitter at Pallet_U to keep up on all things Pokemon science. And as always, there's a time and place for everything.